After the school gave the guaranteed admission spot to the girl who bullied me, I decided to tank everything. Physics competition? Nope. Representative speech? No way. The 7-school joint exam? I handed in a blank paper. But when the school board came to visit and my dad, who's a board member, asked to see me, I couldn't exactly skip that. So I went straight up to him and complained, "Dad, the school's playing favorites." It all started when the joint exam scores came out. I got a 2280, perfect score is 2,400, the highest in our grade. But instead of congratulations, I got sneers. My teacher, Mr. Henderson, grabbed my score sheet and told me to go to the office. Ashley Parker, the principal's daughter, was also there, giving me a smug look. Mr. Henderson got straight to the point. The early admission decision is out. His eyes flicked between Ashley and me. Then he smiled at Ashley. Congratulations. I waited for him to finish, my face blank. What about me? His smile faltered. Katie, I wanted to talk to you about your options. I know you work hard, and you've won awards, but Ashley, well, she has. I finished his sentence. Ashley has mediocre grades, bullies her classmates, and throws her weight around. Mr. Henderson was speechless. Ashley was furious. Katie, what the hell are you talking about? Haven't I taught you a lesson already? I gave her a cold look. Her lessons included locking me in the bathroom, putting bugs and a dead mouse in my desk, and throwing my books and supplies in the trash. Mr. Henderson knew about it. I pointed at her arrogant expression. Even so, she still gets the early admission? Mr. Henderson stammered, giving Ashley a look. Then he turned back to me, trying to placate me. With your scores, you can get into any college. I cut him off. Didn't the announcement say the top scorer gets priority for early admission? He frowned. Well, yes, but you don't really need it, do you? Yes, I did. I had a deal with my dad. If I got early admission, I could study music instead of business management. I looked at Mr. Henderson again. 3 years, 5 national awards, 16 state awards, countless school awards, always top of the class. Even so, she still gets it. He was sweating now, lips trembling. Ashley snapped. Just give it up already. It's just one spot. If you piss me off, I can make your life a living hell. I ignored her, staring at Mr. Henderson until he finally said, rules are rules, but the decision is made. Just focus on the SATs. It won't make much difference. I nodded and left. Ashley followed me out. Katie, some people are born with silver spoons in their mouths, and some people are born to shovel shit. Blame your loser dad. I called my loser dad. He didn't pick up, but texted me. Just arrived at the US Embassy. What's up, sweetie? I thought, oh, nothing, just someone calling us losers. He sent me $500. Treat yourself. Daddy's got a meeting. I'll bring you souvenirs when I get back. Back in class, Ashley was bragging. Oh, early admission, no big deal. Her friends sneered at me. I sat down and ignored them. When Mr. Henderson called me after class, I walked right past him. He grabbed my arm. Next Friday, there's a city physics competition. You're representing our school. Prepare this week. Loud enough for the whole class to hear, I said, not going. His jaw dropped. The other students were stunned. Is Katie sick? She loves competitions. She's just mad about the early admission. Mr. Henderson sputtered. It's a school honor. Who cares? He was furious. I always gave you priority. This is how you repay me. Ashley strutted over. I'll go, Mr. Henderson. I only missed 5 points on the physics section last time. Good girl, Ashley. I knew I could count on you. He glared at me. Ungrateful brat. After he left, Ashley confronted me. Don't think you're so special. I'll beat you at the competition. I skipped studying for the competition and went home. My sister-in-law, who was watching my nephew, was surprised. Aren't you prepping for the competition? How did you know about it? I'm proctoring. Since you're here, come with me. Why? Don't you want to try the physics problems? They have 2 new question types, really challenging. I was hooked. Besides music, I loved solving puzzles. The next day, I went to the testing center with my sister-in-law. She gave me an office to work on the problems. Near the end, she stormed in. Some girl was cheating. I took down her ID number. She picked up my completed test. Done. Almost. I'll take this to the grading team. You can go home. Outside, I ran into Ashley, Mr. Henderson, and her posse. They surrounded me. What are you doing here? Jealous much. Probably wants that prize money. Mr. Henderson chimed in. You had your chance. I frowned. I'm stalking. Ashley smirked. How else would you know where the testing center is? None of your business. Don't be a bitch. Buzz off. Her friend interjected. She's just jealous, Ashley. You too, I said. Finally, Mr. Henderson intervened. Ashley, how did you do? Ashley beamed. Piece of cake. I'll definitely get first place. Her friends gushed. Mr. Henderson was ecstatic. I heard the new question types were tough. Even Katie. Well, I'm so proud of you, Ashley. Ashley smiled. Katie can't compare to me. She's my loser. I turned to leave. Ashley taunted. Running away? Not worth getting worked up over you, I muttered. The next week, at the school assembly, the principal was praising Ashley. Ashley Parker achieved outstanding results in the city physics competition. Let's congratulate her. Thunderous applause. Then he started criticizing me for putting personal feelings above school honor. Suddenly, a black car pulled up. 3 men in suits walked onto the field. Mr. Henderson whispered, "They're from the competition's oversight committee." The principal rushed over, all smiles. "Welcome. To what do we owe this honor?" The lead man said, "We're looking for Ashley Parker." The principal beamed. "Ashley, come here." Ashley strutted forward, sneering at me as she passed. The men confirmed her identity. "Regarding yesterday's physics competition, The principal interrupted. Yes, you're here to congratulate her. We expected nothing less." The men exchanged looks. "Please let us finish. After review, Ashley Parker is disqualified for cheating. She will be punished and publicly reprimanded." The principal's face turned several shades of green. "Impossible. My daughter wouldn't cheat." The lead man handed him a document. "Here's the official notice. You can appeal to the city's Board of Education." But 2 proctors for cameras. She hid miniature receivers in her hair clip and earrings. Such ingenuity wasted. The principal stared at Ashley. "Receivers." 2,000 students stared at Ashley. She stammered. I didn't know anything about receivers." "Don't lie. The evidence has been submitted to the police. Perhaps you'd like to join us at the station?" Ashley crumpled. "Dad, it wasn't me. It was my friend's idea." The principal gritted his teeth. "Go back to class." Ashley slunk back, defeated. A rival teacher from another class smirked at Mr. Henderson. "I thought your star student was going to steal the show." Well, she did. I almost burst out laughing. Ashley was suspended and never came back. Mr. Henderson lost his bonus. He raged in class the next day, blaming me. "This is all your fault. If you hadn't." I propped my head up on my jacket and nodded. "You're right. If only things hadn't been switched." He meant the physics competition. I meant the early admission. He glared at me. "Get out." I grabbed my jacket and left. 3 minutes later, I knocked on the door again. A handsome boy stood there. "Someone's here for you," I said. Mr. Henderson's anger melted into a sycophantic grin. "Jason Lee. What a surprise." Murmurs rippled through the classroom. "It's Jason Lee from Northwood High. He was on the local news last year." Jason said politely, "I'm looking for Katie." Mr. Henderson beamed. Oh, he couldn't imagine anyone from his class being important enough for Jason Lee to visit. "Katie," Jason repeated. "I heard she's in your class." Mr. Henderson's smile froze. Our eyes met. I could see the disbelief and embarrassment in his. "What do you want with her?" he stammered. "Did she do something wrong?" "No," Jason said, pulling a test paper from his backpack. "I just wanted to ask her about her solution to the last problem on the physics competition." Mr. Henderson's jaw dropped. "She didn't take the test." Jason frowned. "This is a copy from my uncle, who's on the committee. Only Katie solved the last problem. I'm sure of it. Is she not in your class?" Mr. Henderson spluttered. She is." "Where is she then?" Mr. Henderson looked at me. I patted Jason on the shoulder. "Hey, looking for me?" Jason looked me up and down, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "You're Katie?" "Yep." "What are you doing out here?" I smiled. "Detention. Hard to tell." Mr. Henderson's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. He looked at me, then at Jason Lee, and then at the photocopy of the physics test Jason was holding. The classroom behind them had gone entirely quiet, every single student straining their neck to hear what was happening in the hallway. "Detention?" Jason's brow furrowed. He looked genuinely baffled. "You're the only person in the entire city who solved the friction coefficient anomaly in the bonus question, and your school has you standing in the hallway on detention." "Well, yes," I said, leaning casually against the lockers. "Mr. Henderson feels that my attitude is lacking. He prefers students who are more cooperative, like Ashley Parker." The mention of Ashley's name made Mr. Henderson's face turn a violent mottled shade of purple. He stepped out of the classroom, quickly closing the door behind him to block the students' view, though the glass window still showed dozens of pressed faces. "Katie, stop talking nonsense," Mr. Henderson whispered fiercely, his eyes darting toward Jason. He then forced a pathetic, trembling smile onto his face. "Jason, there must be some mistake. Katie didn't take the city competition. She refused to represent our school. The paper you have, it must belong to someone else. My uncle is the chief director of the city's academic oversight committee." Jason said, his voice entirely flat and devoid of any polite warmth. He pulled this paper directly from the proctoring office's blind grading pile. The ID number matches Katie's student file. She completed it in the auxiliary testing room. Jason looked at Mr. Henderson with a quiet, devastating look of intellectual superiority. And considering the student who actually represented your school was disqualified for using a wireless receiver in her hair clip, I suggest you don't lecture me on mistakes, Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson looked as if he had been struck by lightning. His hands shook and he subconsciously stepped back, his back hitting the classroom door with a dull thud. Jason turned back to me, ignoring our teacher completely. He handed me the paper and a sleek black pen. I spent 3 days trying to solve the third question, using the standard Lagrangian mechanics, but your solution used a simplified vector projection. How did you get the torque to cancel out without calculating the boundary limits? I took the pen, leaned against the cold metal locker, and quickly scribbled 3 lines of equations on the margins of the paper. You don't need to calculate the boundary limits because the system is in a closed thermodynamic loop, I explained, my voice calm and even. If you treat the torque as a localized field force, the limits naturally collapse to zero at the point of contact. Jason stared at the 3 lines of math. For a long silent moment he didn't say a word. Then, a slow, brilliant smile spread across his face, the look of a fellow nerd who had just seen a beautiful piece of art. Localized field force. Jason whispered, tapping his temple. That's brilliant. It cuts the calculation time in half. Why isn't this in the standard prep books? Because the prep books are written by people like Mr. Henderson, I said, giving our teacher a pleasant, biting smile. They only know how to memorize formulas, not how the physics actually works. Katie, Mr. Henderson roared, his professional dignity entirely shattered. Go to the principal's office. Right now. I am writing you up for insubordination and disrespecting a faculty member. Sure, I said, handing the pen back to Jason. See you around, Jason. I'll walk with you, Jason said, packing his paper away. I need to visit the administrative building anyway. My uncle wants to file an official inquiry into why a student of your caliber is being kept out of city competitions in favor of a cheater. Mr. Henderson looked as if he were about to faint. He watched us walk down the hallway, his body trembling with a mixture of rage, embarrassment, and a sudden, cold terror. The principal's office was quiet, smelling of expensive leather and furniture polish. Principal Parker, Ashley's father, was sitting behind his massive mahogany desk. He looked 10 years older than he had last week. The public disqualification of his daughter at the school assembly had been a massive blow to his reputation, and the district's Board of Education was already auditing the school's academic records. When I walked in, followed by Jason, Principal Parker looked up, his expression instantly darkening. Katie, he said, his voice tight. What are you doing here? And who is this? I'm Jason Lee, Student Council President of Northwood High, Jason said, stepping forward with an effortless, aristocratic confidence that came from a wealthy, intellectual family. I'm here to accompany Katie. Her teacher, Mr. Henderson, kicked her out of class for explaining a physics problem to me. Principal Parker's brow furrowed. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a deep, bitter resentment. In his mind, his daughter's ruin was somehow my fault. If I had simply taken the test and won, no one would have looked at Ashley. Jason, this is a private disciplinary matter for our school, Principal Parker said coldly. Please return to your campus. Jason didn't flinch. He simply pulled out his phone. Of course. I'll let my uncle, Director Lee of the Municipal Education Bureau, know that you're busy. Was planning to call you this afternoon regarding the early admission quota. Anomalies anyway. The word anomalies made Principal Parker's hand twitch. He looked at Jason, realizing the boy wasn't just some random student. He was the nephew of the most powerful education official in the city. Jason, wait, the principal said, his voice suddenly softening into a tight, strained politeness. There's no need for that. I'm sure Katie and I can resolve this misunderstanding quickly. You may wait outside. Jason looked at me. I gave him a small nod, and he politely bowed his head to the principal before stepping out of the office, closing the heavy wooden door behind him. Once we were alone, the principal's polite mask shattered. He leaned forward, his eyes glaring at me like a snake. You think you're very clever, don't you, Katie? He hissed. Using a student from another school to threaten me? You think because Ashley is suspended, you've won? I didn't use anyone, Principal Parker, I said, sitting down in the leather chair opposite him without being asked. Jason came to find me on his own, and I don't care about winning. I just want what's mine. What's yours? Principal Parker let out a harsh, dry laugh. The early admission spot? Let me tell you something, girl. The school board has already approved the recommendation. Even if Ashley doesn't get it, it's not going to. I've already signed the paperwork to transfer the spot to the second place. Student Marcus Vance. I raised an eyebrow. Marcus Vance? The vice principal's nephew? Yes, Principal Parker sneered. Some people have connections, Katie. Some people have families who contribute to this school's endowment. Your father. What does he do again? A low-level clerk? A delivery driver? He has never even shown up to a single parent-teacher association meeting. You have no backing. Here. He pulled a document from his drawer and tossed it onto the desk. It was an official disciplinary report, citing my blank paper on the 7-school joint exam. This 0 on your joint exam has dragged our school's average down by 3 whole percentage points, Principal Parker said, his voice cold and triumphant. This is a malicious attempt to sabotage the school's reputation. Based on this, and your repeated insubordination, the disciplinary committee has decided to suspend you indefinitely. You will not be allowed to take the final exams, which means your GPA will be ruined, and you won't be getting into any university, let alone an Ivy League. He leaned back, a smug, venomous smile spreading across his face. Now go home and tell your loser dad that his daughter is a failure. I looked at the suspension paper, then up at his arrogant face. I didn't feel angry. In fact, I felt a deep, overwhelming sense of satisfaction. They had walked right into the deepest hole they could possibly dig for themselves. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and looked at the screen. It was a text from my dad. Just landed at the city airport. The Board of Trustees meeting is at 4 p.m. today, right? See you in the boardroom, sweetie. I smiled, stood up, and looked at Principal Parker. Thank you, Principal Parker, I said softly. I'll see you at the board meeting. The school's administrative building was a grand, historic brick structure with ivy climbing up the walls. The top floor housed the grand boardroom, where the school's board of trustees, the wealthy donors and community leaders who actually funded and controlled the private academy, met to make major decisions. At 3:55 p.m. Mr. Henderson and Principal Parker were standing outside the double mahogany doors of the boardroom, holding thick folders of documents. They looked nervous but determined. Principal Parker wanted to present my suspension and the transfer of the early admission spot to the board for immediate approval before any investigation into his daughter's cheating could go deeper. When they saw me walking up the stairs, still wearing my school uniform with my backpack slung over one shoulder, Mr. Henderson's face darkened. Katie, what are you doing here? He snapped. This is a closed-door meeting for the trustees. Students are strictly forbidden on this floor. I'm here as a witness, I said, standing near the grand window that looked out over the courtyard. A witness to what? Your own academic sabotage. Principal Parker sneered. Go back to the lobby, or I will have security escort you off the premises immediately. Before I could respond, the heavy mahogany doors opened, and a tall, elegant woman in a tailored cream suit walked out. It was Mrs. Vance, the head of the school's administrative council and the sister-in-law who had proctored my physics test. Principal Parker, Mr. Henderson, the board is ready for you, Mrs. Vance said, her voice crisp and authoritative. She glanced at me and gave me a subtle, reassuring wink. And please bring Katie in as well. The trustees have requested her presence. Principal Parker and Mr. Henderson exchanged a confused, uneasy look, but they couldn't argue with Mrs. Vance. We walked into the boardroom. The room was massive, featuring a long, polished oak table surrounded by 20 plush leather chairs. Sitting in those chairs were the city's most influential people, bankers, tech executives, and real estate moguls who funded the school's millions. But the chair at the absolute center of the table, the seat reserved for the board chairman, was currently turned around, facing the large floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city skyline. Principal Parker cleared his throat, stepping forward with his best sycophantic smile. Honored trustees, thank you for convening this emergency meeting. As you know, our school has recently faced some unfortunate administrative challenges. However, we have a clear plan to restore our academic standing. Today, we are presenting the suspension of Katie Lynn for malicious academic sabotage and the transfer of the early admission spot to Marcus Vance, a highly deserving student from a family of prominent donors. He laid the documents on the table, pushing them toward Mrs. Vance. Mr. Henderson chimed in, his voice filled with righteous indignation. Indeed, Katie Lynn has repeatedly refused to represent the school, handed in a blank paper on the joint exam, and has shown a complete lack of respect for her teachers. She is a cancer on our grade's academic culture. The room remained dead silent. None of the trustees looked at the papers. In fact, several of them looked at Mr. Henderson as if he were a dead man walking slowly The massive leather chair at the head of the table began to rotate. The man sitting in it was wearing a bespoke charcoal gray Italian suit. His hair was slightly silvered at the temples, and his face carried the sharp, commanding aura of a diplomat who had spent the last decade negotiating international trade treaties. He set down a gold fountain pen, looked at Principal Parker, and then looked at me. Daddy, I said, giving him a bright, cheerful wave. How was your flight? The silence in the boardroom was so absolute that the hum of the air conditioning sounded like a roaring engine. Mr. Henderson's jaw dropped so low it looked as if it might detach from his face. His eyes darted from me to the man at the head of the table, his brain completely short-circuiting. Daddy, Mr. Henderson stammered, his voice squeaking like a stepped-on toy. Katie, your father is Chairman Vance? Principal Parker's face had gone entirely white, a sickly gray pallor spreading from his forehead down to his collar. He looked at the documents he had just laid on the table, documents that repeatedly referred to Katie Lynn, my mother's maiden name, which I used in the school registry to avoid being treated differently, and called for her immediate, humiliating expulsion. My father, Arthur Vance, chief donor, founder of the Vance Technology Foundation, and the man who had funded the school's entire new science and arts wing, slowly leaned forward. He picked up the expulsion petition with 2 fingers, as if it were a dirty piece of trash. Principal Parker, my dad said, his voice low, resonant, and entirely terrifying in its absolute calm. You want to expel my daughter because she handed in a blank paper on a joint exam. Chairman Vance, there has been a massive misunderstanding, Principal Parker stammered, his hands shaking so violently that the papers he was holding scattered across the polished oak table. We didn't know. The registry only listed her as Katie Lynn. We had no idea she was your daughter. Oh, my dad raised an eyebrow, his eyes cold as ice. So if she were just a regular student, the daughter of a loser clerk, as your daughter Ashley so eloquently put it, it would be perfectly acceptable to lock her in the bathroom, to put dead mice in her desk, to steal her academic achievements and hand them to your own daughter? No, never. We would never tolerate bullying. Mr. Henderson cried out, sweat pouring down his face, soaking his collar. I always protected Katie. I was trying to encourage her to participate in the physics competition. Mrs. Vance, my sister-in-law, stood up and tossed a thick folder onto the center of the table. This is the official report from the Municipal Education Bureau, she said, her voice ringing out through the boardroom. It contains the security footage from the school's hallway, which Principal Parker's office attempted to delete last week. It clearly shows Ashley Parker and her friends locking Katie in the science lab, and Mr. Henderson walking past the door, hearing her cries for help and ignoring them. She looked at Mr. Henderson with a look of profound disgust. It also contains the detailed financial audits of the school's scholarship fund. Over the last 2 years, Principal Parker has diverted over $50,000 of academic prize money that Katie won, to fund his daughter's extracurricular prep courses in Europe. The trustees around the table began to murmur, their faces dark with anger. The reputation of the academy was their primary concern, and this level of systemic corruption and abuse was a direct threat to their investments. This is academic fraud, Principal Parker, my dad said, tapping his gold pen on the table, and it is criminal exploitation of a minor. Chairman Vance, please. Principal Parker fell to his knees, his professional pride completely shattered as he wept and pleaded. I've served this school for 15 years. My daughter, Ashley, she was just young and foolish. Don't ruin her future. If this goes to the police, she'll be blacklisted from every university in the country. She should be blacklisted, my dad said, his voice hard as iron. She is a bully, a thief, and a cheater. And you are her accomplice. He looked at the board members. I propose an immediate vote. First, the termination of Principal Parker's contract, with cause effective immediately. Second, the revocation of Mr. Henderson's teaching license for academic malpractice and child neglect. Third, a full, independent audit of the school's admissions and scholarship records to be handed over to the state prosecutor. I second the motion, Mrs. Vance said immediately. All in favor? My dad asked. Every single hand around the massive table went up. Not a single person hesitated. Mr. Henderson collapsed against the wall, sliding down to the carpet, his face completely blank with despair. He had spent his entire career kissing up to the wealthy and powerful, only to realize he had spent the last 3 years bullying the daughter of the most powerful man in the city. 2 days later, the morning sun was bright and warm, casting a beautiful golden light over the campus courtyard. The news of Principal Parker's firing, Mr. Henderson's arrest for financial fraud, and Ashley's permanent academic blacklist had sent shockwaves through the Entire school. The atmosphere on campus had completely changed. The old, toxic culture of bullying and favoritism had vanished overnight, replaced by a quiet, respectful focus on actual merit. I was sitting on the wooden bench under the old oak tree, holding my guitar and softly tuning the strings. A shadow fell over my sheet music. I looked up. It was Jason Lee. He was wearing his Northwood High uniform, a leather messenger bag slung over his shoulder, holding a clean, official-looking document. "Hey," Jason said, giving me a warm, genuine smile. "Is this seat taken?" "Not for you," I said, sliding over to give him room. "What's that?" He handed me the document. It was an official, gold-sealed certificate from the Ivy League Admissions Board. "The Board of Trustees finalized the review," Jason said. "The early admission spot has been rightfully returned to you. The university's Dean of Admissions personally signed it. They even offered you a full tuition fellowship for their prestigious dual degree program in physics and music theory." I looked at the gold seal. In my past life, this was the piece of paper I would have wept over. The paper I would have begged for just to prove my worth to a group of people who didn't care about me. Slowly, deliberately, I folded the document and slid it back into his messenger bag. Jason blinked, looking surprised. You're not taking it?" "I don't need a guaranteed spot from a school that had to be forced to do the right thing, Jason," I said, a soft, incredibly liberating smile spreading across my face. "Besides, I took the regular decision SAT last month. I got a perfect 2,400. And yesterday, I received an independent, unconditional admission offer from the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia." Jason stared at me, his eyes widening, and then he let out a loud, delighted laugh. "A perfect 2,400? While you were busy handing in blank papers at school?" "A girl needs to keep her brain sharp," I said, plucking a sweet, clear chord on my guitar. "And I like to do things on my own terms." "You are truly extraordinary, Katie Vance," Jason said, his voice soft-filled with a deep, quiet admiration that made my heart flutter just a little. "So, Philadelphia? That's not too far from Boston. I just accepted my offer from MIT." I looked at him, noticing the warm, steady light in his eyes. "MIT? That's a pretty good school, Jason. I suppose I can visit you on weekends to explain the torque anomaly to you again." "I'll hold you to that," he said, his smile widening. The school bell rang in the distance, announcing the start of the afternoon classes. But for the first time in 3 years, I didn't rush. I leaned back against the ancient oak tree, closed my eyes, and let the warm, beautiful music of my guitar drift up into the endless blue sky. The bullies were gone. The corrupt were ruined. And my music was finally playing, loud and free, for the rest of my life.